Yes, sir.
All right, good deal. All right. So I think I have attendance for everybody. All right. So what we're going to do, um, we're going to go over today's assignment. Then we're going to talk about our annotations. Um, and then I'm going to call on you to go over your annotations. And when that happens, all you have to do is unmute yourself. Um, Tell us the act, scene, and line number so that we can go find it. You're going to read that um, excerpt, and then you're going to explain why it is a example of either a Shakespearean tragedy and which specific one, or why it's an example of dramatic irony. All right. I think I have everyone's attendance here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep, got everybody's attendance. And so we'll go ahead and get started. Your assignment for today, which is going to be posted as soon as the session is over, is to read Act 3, Scene 5, okay, as well as Act 4, Scene 1. So you're going to read Act 3, Scene 5, and Act 4, Scene 1. Like I said, all this is going to be put into a document posted on Portal. Just wait until after we had our session to post it. And then you're going to answer the questions on it, just like in all the other stuff. Okay. The YouTube videos where I'm going over the answers and discussing each episode is going to have to wait until the deadline date, just like the previous one. So that's why there hasn't been a new video posted. Um, that is enough out of me. One thing that we do need to show you is, so when we were reading, especially in a situation where we're transitioning from a different act, you want to keep in mind each act's purpose, its role. And so, what I mean by that is you should be able to see this now. Everybody see this? Yes? No?
Yes, we can see
All
it.
right, got it. All right. So from here, this is what I'm referring to here with the plot of keep in mind as we transition from each act, is it following its purpose, right? So Act 3, don't get climax confused with resolution, right? Just because the crisis is at its climax, it means it's at its highest point. It does not mean that it is resolved. That is kind of the purpose of the drawing, if you will, of that plot chart that we've made, where it's that big hump, right? So if you see, it still makes that big hump here, where the climax is at the top portion because it's at its peak. It's not resolved by any means. So we're wrapping up Act 3. So keep in mind its purpose. Do you think that it does that job? And then Act 4, where it's going to further develop um, the action, the complications, um, the conflict, okay, even the crisis. So keep in mind of that, and then I would even make note of it as you see different examples of the story unfold. Does that help or does it help you understand it a little bit more with this plot format in mind? All right. With that being said, let's switch over to your sharing time now. Cohen, you not Cohen. Cross, you're up first. All you need to do is tell me the act, line, and or act, scene, and line number. Read that portion and then tell us which um, annotation it is. Is it dramatic irony?
Okay. I gotta get my book.
Yep. Or is it
Get mine?
a Shakespearean element of tragedy? Let's go ahead and go with Alec while Cross gets his book.
Wait, anywhere in the book?
Yeah, just give me your examples. Just give me like one example of a dramatic irony annotation and one example of any Shakespearean element in here.
Let me see here. Wait. Where's my? I'm not really that caught up with my annotations. Find it.
Why?
I don't know.
Well, I don't know is not an answer. You do know, so why?
I just hadn't been doing them, to be honest.
Well, here's the problem. Blade. You're up, bud.
You just want an example of element of a Shakespearean tragedy and dramatic irony? Just one of each?
One of each, please.
A minute. Something. There we go. Let's see. I have 66. I have line 66 through 86 from Act 1, Scene 2 as I've put that as dramatic irony.
Okay, give me a second. So Act 1, Scene 2, line 66, you said?
Yeah, line 66 through 86.
All right. And why do you think this is dramatic irony?
Because Romeo ends up helping out a Capulet serving man, and then he invites him to a Capulet ball. And since the two houses are mortal enemies, they kind of weren't serving man kind of wasn't supposed to do that.
Right. And so, just for everyone else, what is the definition of dramatic irony?
It's basically when the author uses the fact that the audience knows something that the characters doesn't for humor, tension, etc., etc.
Right. And so in this situation, in the example you gave there, you have a Hamlet who invites, as you said, the mortal enemy. I like that. To the ball, which he does so not because he wants to stir up drama or he wants to resolve this conflict. He does so because he mistakenly doesn't identify Romeo and thinks that or doesn't realize that he is in fact the mortal enemy. And so, since we as the audience know this, it is in fact an example of dramatic irony because we see that possible crisis unfold right in front of us. Okay? Good. And an example.
Coach, I'm ready.
All right, 1 second. An example of the Shakespearean elements. Any one of the elements. It doesn't matter which one.
I have lines 59 through 100 for Act 1, Scene 4. It's the whole Queen Mabs thing. Probably better to identify with that. And I have that labeled as a supernatural element.
Okay. So Mercudo referring to the dream.
The dream fairy thing.
Right. Okay. Okay. Good. I don't need you to read the whole
No.
thing. We get it. But all right. Good job, Blade. Cross. You want to go ahead?
I have Act 3, Scene 5, lines 23, 24. Oh, Thursday, let it be. Oh, Thursday, tell her she shall be married to this noble earl. And I have dramatic irony.
This is actually it's Act 3, Scene 4. So you're referring to at the top here, but Scene 5 starts down here, and so you're somewhere.
Oh, yes.
Here.
Scene 4.
It's Scene 4, but yeah. Okay, so oh Thursday, let it be. Oh Thursday, tell her she shall be married to this noble earl. And why is this an example of dramatic irony?
Because we know that she's already married to Romeo, but her father and mother don't know that she's married yet.
Right, and who are they suggesting or implying that she's going to be married?
Paris.
Right. Okay, and so we have this kind of a awkward situation, if you will, right? Juliet is already married, and they had to do so secretly because they knew their families wouldn't allow it. And so through this secrecy, obviously no one, by the definition of secrecy, no one knows that it took place. And so that's referring to everyone, and therefore Paris especially doesn't realize, and neither does her father. And they're in conversations on when can this marriage take place. And as we know, this desire, especially from Paris's side, to marry Juliet has been there since the very opening of the play. And so he is very eager to get this done, right? All right. And your example for any of the Shakespearean elements?
At the end, Act 3, Scene 2, lines 145 through 150, where Romeo's being exiled as a tragic hero.
Okay. And which element is this?
Tragic hero.
And what makes him a tragic hero? Because
He slew Tybalt for his friend
mm-hmm. Okay.
for revenge.
Okay. Let's go. We did Blade. Brock, you're up, bud.
I don't have my annotations.
Why?
I haven't been doing them.
Christian?
I know them. I just couldn't find them in the book. But is it okay if I still tell you?
I don't know what that means. How do you not have them in the book?
Like I know, I just couldn't find the page number in the book that has it. But like, I know what's it called?
Where's your book?
A dramatic. My book's right here. I just couldn't find it in the. I just couldn't find the page in the book that had it. That had what I'm gonna say. But may I still say it?
I'm confused. All right, so annotations are as we're reading, we're writing in the page, like on the page, and we're referring to the specific notes that we're referring to. We're looking for examples of dramatic irony. We see it, we circle it or underline it, and then explain why it's dramatic irony. And then we have our 10 elements of a Shakespearean tragedy. We have our list of 10 and what they are. Anytime we find an example of that, we underline it or highlight it or circle it or whatever, and we explain why this part is an example of it. You say you've done that. So now just open the book and tell me which lines we're looking at here.
I mean, I'm trying to find it. I just can't find the lines.
Do you have this edition, the Folgers edition?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you open it, just open up to any random page. What page are you on?
I'm on Act 1, Scene 1.
Okay. Now, you're looking at, now remember it's reversed. You're looking at this side of the page where the text is actually on the seam after the line where the page is almost in, there's numbers there. That's your line numbers. So which line numbers, and it's in increments of 5. So if the number's not necessarily right next to the line, just continue counting it in the proper order and it'll lead you to the line number. So what line number are we referring to? We're on Act 1, Scene 1, you said. So which line number?
Like, I know how to do the line numbers. I just don't know where the thing is that I'm thinking of. Like, because I'm thinking of how they think that Romeo's lovesick for Rosaline, except really he just like he is with Juliet and he's like wanting Juliet and he instead of Rosaline, except everyone thinks that's Rosaline, except I don't know where that is.
Right. So when you were reading it and annotating it, did you not write it down?
No, sir.
Well, see, that's the problem. Why aren't you writing it down? That's the point of annotation. Annotations aren't to remember it because, hey, guess what? We forget things. And we need to be able to go back and specifically find that point. And so, yes, you're right. That is an example of dramatic irony that everyone, and when I mean everyone, will be specific here with Mercutio giving Romeo a hard time about being upset about Rosaline. I'm assuming this is the part you're talking about how he needs to move on. Yet Romeo already has, and he just doesn't know it. And so we as an audience know that, but his best friend doesn't, and therefore we know something the character doesn't. making it dramatic irony. But
Yes, sir.
annotations are no good if they're not written down to where we can go back and find them exactly pinpoint. And so I'm assuming you have it memorized for your Shakespearean element.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I was just thinking because Friar Lawrence is saying that Romeo is going into this like too quickly, and that would be like kind of like a tragic flaw of Romeo that like he's kind of going into this love thing too quickly and going into this marriage thing like too quickly, like for it to be like good. Like they should spend like months thinking of if they want to get married instead of just like going off the first week and getting married.
Okay. No true love at first sight type fairy tale, but okay. Gage, you're up, bud.
All right, for dramatic irony, I have Act 3, Scene 2, and lines 77 through no wait. Sorry. That's the wrong page. It's lines 45 through 67. And
Okay.
the dramatic irony is that Juliet thinks that Romeo is dead, but we know that it's Tybalt who's dead and Romeo is just banished.
Okay. And just for different purposes, think of the Shakespearean element, and I'm gonna pull it up here so everybody can see it again. This out the damn way. Right, so cursed by fate and possessed of a tragic flaw. Okay. What about this one? The fatal character flaw of the tragic hero. Could this have been something like that where he becomes banished, right? And because of that, it's going to result in some pretty different choices to be made. And then you have this internal conflict on how this person is going to struggle with that. Okay, so think of Romeo and Juliet. If Romeo is banished from the city, what does that mean for him and his new bride that he loves so much and can't be without? What kind of choices do you think might be made in a situation like this? Okay, so remember, Shakespeare is the master of foreshadowing his events and foreshadowing the characters' destiny, if you will, especially their fate, right? And so just try to keep that in mind as you're reading. What is Shakespeare trying to foreshadow here, especially in this situation, because it's so important that Romeo is banished and you have someone who is so young, who typically hasn't demonstrated to make the most rational of decisions, especially when it comes to trying to get what he wants, right? You have a Montague going to the Capulet ball, knowing full well the consequences of what could happen if he were to be caught or to be recognized, right? Just not a very sound logic planner, if you will. But all right, go ahead. Continue with your next annotation, please.
All right, and then the Shakespearean element I have is in Act 3, Scene 3, and from line 115 to 117, and I have that as Romeo's tragic flaw. He's quick to follow his emotions, and instead of thinking about what he could do, he immediately tries to kill himself.
Right, and so again, just like what I was just going through, someone who doesn't quite think logically or rationally in terms of in order to get what they want. So you have this kid, if you would, and every stretch of the imagination, he is just a kid, a teenager, who thinks he's in so much love with this person that he can't stand to live without them. He can't live, he can't see them. And so he finds out that he's banished, or he's told that he's banished, and therefore all of those emotions come flooding in. And for someone who doesn't quite think everything through, he grasps for straws, if you will, and he comes up with some permanent solutions to a temporary problem. And Fry Lawrence is there to try to kind of persuade him and to help him understand that there are other ways, better ways to handle the situation, right? But yeah, good. Tommy Boy.
So in the prologue, line 6, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their fate. That's dramatic irony because it's showing that they're gonna take their life. In the end, it's ironic because this is before the play even started.
Line 6, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life. Okay. So this is an example of dramatic irony because you know the ending, right? And so when you see take their life, obviously it means that they are going to die. And so since you know exactly how they're going to die, you know something that these other characters may not. Okay. What else you got?
So like the whole first scene kind of the fight in the street, that would be an example of external conflict.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. So about this scene. So again, as I talked about in the video that I posted on the portal, I said that Shakespeare is the master at detail. He doesn't just come out and say and list these things. He doesn't just come out and say, well, the Montagues hate the Capulets and here's their story, right? He painstakingly goes into detail for the viewer, the reader, the audience to realize just how much these families hate each other. And the entire scene 1 is literally them fighting, some to the death, because they just don't like each other. And if that doesn't paint a picture of that hatred between the two, what will? And so then now we start asking, okay, well, maybe it just occurred, right? Maybe this hatred just brewed up over something that someone did, right? But then you have Prince comes in, and what does he do? Once he finds out they're still fighting, he gets livid, and then makes the announcement that if another person is caught fighting amongst these families, the punishment would be what, Cameron?
Death.
Right? They'll be put to death.
Oh wait, no.
Seems a bit
yeah.
drastic, would you say?
I would say.
Okay, so typically, in terms of law, the punishment has to fit the crime, right? That's why if someone is caught shoplifting, the punishment is not death, right? That doesn't fit the crime. So therefore, just the sheer fact that if anyone in these families are caught fighting in the streets again or fighting anywhere, that they would be put to death. How does that fit the crime? And what that tells us is that this has been going on for so long, and that hatred is brewed so deep that the prince himself is so sick and tired of it that he's willing to make a drastic decision like this to try to put an end to it. And so when we say the attention is in the detail, right? That portion of the prince's ruling is just as powerful, if not as powerful, as the description of them fighting on how much these families hate each other. Okay, but that is a good example there. Cohen, you're up.
Hello?
Yep.
I didn't do them.
Why?
I just haven't been writing them down.
And Riley, your last up.
Okay. I have Act 1, Scene 5, line 62 through 73. It's external conflict between the Capulets and Montague.
And Montague?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what is the external conflict that's taking place here? Just kind of summarize it if you can.
I would say it's like an argument between Tybalt and, well, when he finds out that Romeo's at the ball, he just starts arguing him, and he also ends up hitting him with a chair.
So the conflict here is between, you could say the Capulets and the Montagues, but you could say that anywhere. But more specifically, it's between who?
It says, well, I'm reading it right now. It says that it's just Talbot arguing with Capulet, saying, "Why is Romeo here?" So it's between two Capulets.
Okay, so when you say arguing, they're not literally arguing with each other. It's more of like let's say let's say this. Okay, say out of someone in the entire school, there's at least one person you don't like. Let's say that one person is invited or is somehow shows up to your birthday party, right? And you see that person and you go up to your mom or your best friend or whatever, and you're like, why is this person here? Right? You're having this argument, but you're not necessarily arguing with them to a point where that's the person that you're angry at. You're more so just angry that that person's here. And then what's going to take place, you see, leads to Tybalt in a conflict with who?
Like, my screen's blurry. I can't read that.
Who's the well, how about this one?
Okay. I can read that. The font's bigger.
Right. So what does that say?
Romeo and Juliet.
Just that one.
Romeo.
Okay, so Tybalt versus
Romeo.
Good. And so your example of dramatic irony.
I have to go look for that.
Take your time. While you're looking for that, has everyone watched did everyone watch the videos to the YouTube channel? Yes. No, yes.
Yes.
I
Yes.
watched the test review videos.
Okay. Do you think they helped kind of understand the story a little bit better? Is there anything that you would recommend or anything that you feel or think needs to be added to those videos to kind of help you understand the reading a little bit more?
Maybe you can like put in questions that people have asked you into the video so everyone else can see them.
And what do you mean by questions people have asked me?
Like if someone emails you a question and you think it's a good question, you can put it in the video.
Okay. A FAQ, frequently asked section. Okay, we can do that. Brock, you got something?
They did help.
It did help. All right. Also, has everyone watched Tiger King?
No,
It's pretty good.
I saw.
I want to watch it.
I'm gonna watch it, but
Well,
Okay, let's watch.
one day if you watch it, you'll understand.
Coach, I watch Glee.
Do what?
I watched Glee instead.
Yep.
Do you know that show?
Yep.
It's great.
Never seen it. But the reason I say it is that there's a little tribute to the old Tiger King in there. I didn't know if anyone recognized it. Kind of upsetting. All right. Riley, you good? You got something?
I don't think I have any annotated dramatic irony. I do have almost everything else, but I don't think I have any dramatic irony.
All right. So define dramatic irony for me.
I think that's the main reason why I didn't annotate it, because I didn't know what it was.
Define dramatic irony for me.
The tension, humor, or suspense created by a situation in which the audience knows something the character or characters do not know.
Anytime we don't know, should we just you on not knowing what something means, or should we look and maybe find what it means?
We should probably look.
Yeah,
And-
especially when it's one of the one of the important aspects of our reading here. Okay. Also, this definition here. This kind of goes for everybody. Foil. So in the videos I pointed out, Romeo's foil is a specific person. Okay. During your readings, especially through Act 4, there's going to be a question that is going to be asked where you're going to have to identify another set of foils, if you will call it a set, right? Because it's 2. So keep in mind as you're reading, you might want to annotate that just this person and this person are foils because, or this person is this person's foil because of blank, right? And that way you just have it at the ready for whenever we have our another video session and we talk about it. Okay. That being said, I think that's everybody in here. Did I miss anyone? All right. So that leads us to the test. Everyone turned their test in, which is good. I'm gonna get those graded as soon as I can. The only grades that are missing on Portal are the 2 quizzes and the test. You have 3 pretty big grades that I'm gonna put in here pretty soon. I don't think the test was too difficult. It was designed to make you write a little bit, but not too much. I kind of felt like it was a pretty good balance. Was the test too hard? No? Yes?
No.
No?
No.
All right. Yep. So I'll get those grades in as soon as I can. And other than that, your assignment for today is going to get posted here in a minute once I close up this video. And all it is to read.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Now, let me see.
All right. So the homework assignment is to read Act 3, Scene 5. So we're going to finish Act 3 and then to begin Act 4. Read Act 4, Scene 1. And there's going to be those questions again. You're going to answer those and then post them to turnitin.com. Remember to keep your answers in complete sentences and they must be original. So no part of your answer can be flagged on turnitin.com. All right. That's it for me. Does anybody have any questions before we go? You'd like to share or ask?
I have a question.
What you got?
When do we start reviewing for exams?
For exams, that will take place after we finish Romeo and Juliet. We should have enough time to do some poetry, so we're gonna do Romeo and Juliet. We're gonna finish this out, which leads us to May 1st, which is poetry. That should be about a week or 2, and then that leads us to exam review.
All right.
All right. Anything else? All right. Well, if you come up with any other questions, shoot me an email. If not, we're good to go. Enjoy the weekend. Y'all be safe. And see y'all soon, hopefully. See ya.